So hopefully you're able to see this. So here's the antitrust policy notice. I think we're all familiar with it. I'm not going to read it out in detail, but clearly it sets out the basis on which we are discussing and on which we are collaborating today. If you do have any questions about this, either uh, um, if you do have any questions about this, either contact your own in-house counsel, or alternatively, if you are a member of the Linux Foundation, you are able to contact Andy Updegrove from Gesma Updegrove, and he is the Linux Foundation's legal counsel and can provide advice on this. So I'm assuming that everyone is happy with that, and also we are going to be recording this call as usual, so if you are not happy with the recording, then please leave now. If you just wish to be more anonymous, then feel free to switch off your microphone and your camera as well. So, welcome again, everybody. I circulated an agenda earlier. There's quite a lot to get through in this meeting. At the last meeting, I sort of set the scene in terms of what I thought it would be helpful to do. So apologies for not sending out the agenda earlier, and Shane very helpfully pointed out when I was working on this that I'd put a couple of incorrect links in, even though it is Golden Week, and even though he's been working late into the night, he's also done some work on updating the materials as well. So I hope that today we can make quite a lot of progress in terms of building on the excellent work that has already been done. There are some items that are very close to publication, and I'm hoping that today we will be able to approve them for publication. So let us take a look at the training slides. Now, I'm not sure whether anyone's had an opportunity to have a look through those prior to the meeting. They are based on the original OpenChain curriculum, which was released several years ago, but quite a lot of work has been done on them by the education work group in the meantime. I will just change my focus of my sharing, so we can. So what I'm not proposing on running through these in detail, because that is going to take all day. But for those who haven't had a look at them, you'll see that they are handily located on GitHub, and they are also in a sort of convenient markdown format. So that's the standard format that we're going to be using for the materials that we produce. The logic behind that is that it's very easy to create materials that can be easily translated into other formats, and also that look pretty good in those formats as well. So it's obviously very, very well understood standard. So there's a lot of material here. I've been through it myself. I was involved in some of the editing process a while back. My personal view is that it's looking in pretty good shape. The only concerns that I have is that as time has gone on, there are some of the references, the links in particular. So I'm not going to click on this one, but I suspect this is probably one of the links that is problematic. The Linux Foundation links, has been an internal reorganization at the Linux Foundation. Some of these links are broken. My proposal is that if we're otherwise happy with the content of these slides, then what I will do is I will fix those links, and then once I've fixed the links, I will get back to Shane and say, yes, we're happy with these. These are ready for point release. So the idea is that this is, it is going to be continuous, a continuously iterative process. They're not going to be set in stone, but I think they're of sufficiently, good quality now to be made available and to be released. So I don't know if anyone else has any comments about that. So feel free to unmute if you want to talk about this. Martin.
Yeah, I guess just from of interest is what will it be called? A I don't know, what's it? May 24 update or something like that, or just
Um,
curious.
yeah, that's a good question. Shane did sort of suggest giving it a release and point number, but I'm not sure which release and point number he was suggesting. So I will ask him about that. But obviously, yes, a release with the date on it, I actually think would be useful as well. So I'll have a word with him about that.
Yeah, I have to admit, I don't think I've looked at the latest material. I think I commented on stuff a long time ago and don't have time right now to look further. So I'm basically happy to accept that it's uh, a massive improvement on what was there before, which was a
Yep,
long time ago. So
yep,
yeah, I'm perfectly happy to press the trigger on it and get it out there.
yeah, excellent. Okay. Anyone else have any comments on that? No, right. Okay, that's superb. I will take that as a yes. So my proposal is that I will take it as read, apart from I will go back and check those links and fix those, and then I will submit it to Shane. And our recommendation there is that they be published. I will figure out what the point number is going to be, but I think attaching a date to that is going to be a good idea. Right. Excellent. So let us get on to the next item, which is not happy because this is off the screen at the moment. Right, the supplier education leaflet. Now, the sort of history of this is sort of little confused because this is not something that I've been involved with personally, so I don't know a great deal about this. Although I know that sort of Martin had some comments about it, and the original um, link that Shane gave to us seemed to lead to an older version, but in fact there were a bunch of there was a bunch of commentary on that, which he has now sort of put some time into updating it. So what we have, and again, I will try to share that. Should be the latest version. And here we can see the diffs between the previous version and the version that's been updated with the regular the comments. Now, in terms of the text, this looks fine to me, but as I say, it's not something that I'm particularly familiar with, so I don't sort of feel comfortable at this stage myself giving a recommendation that we should go ahead with this. But I don't know if anyone else had a chance to have a look through this and has any particular comments. I mean, Martin, I think you're closer to this than I am.
Uh, Possibly closer. I guess,
Yes,
yeah, I saw this version obviously earlier today, and it looked like it was excellent work by Shane
yes,
and a star doing it. To be honest, I think I'd prefer that this was committed into that draft version, and then we get another uh, couple of weeks to look at it or suggest minor changes. Is what I would think because this is going to go to be translated
yes,
to
exactly,
other.
exactly.
So I'd prefer that we get it right. So, for example, I think there was one of the sentences at the beginning that I think can probably go towards the end or at the end where it's talking about the history, just to make it slightly more punchier still. So I'm just
Yeah,
talking
okay.
about a couple maybe of minor edits, but nothing major, just to make sure we're as good as we think we can be.
Yeah, okay, great. I mean, what I suggest with this one in that case is that rather than waiting until the next meeting in a month's time, I think it's only fair because of the work that's gone into this and that you know we're keen to get going. It's basically to say let's discuss this on the mailing list, and if we can put a sort of deadline date of 2 weeks' time. So if we're going to go to the 14th for being the first today, So sort of close of play on the 14th. We'll look at the status then, and hopefully, unless I have people saying to me they are not happy with the state that it's in, and I will look at it, and if I think there's any appropriate edits, I will
Yeah,
suggest those. So we'll make this, if somebody wants to veto it, then they can, and then in that
yeah.
case we will move it over to the next meeting for the discussion. But if I don't receive a veto by close of play on the 14th of May, then I'll press the big green button.
Yes. So I think my only kind of discussion points, which might be worth touching on briefly here, was the comments
Yeah,
I made about the diagram figure. Maybe it's just me that doesn't kind of fully understand it, in which case we can just move on. But yeah, I think that's the sort of thing that's going to be difficult to talk about over a mailing list. And I see Victor has his hand up as well. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah, the reason the reason actually I joined this is to learn about all this thing. Not sure how much feedback I can provide at this point, but one thing I like to really learn more is that I know, Andrew, you created some interesting hardware-based licenses. That's also partly the reason I joined you to talk
Yeah.
to you.
Mhm.
So when this guideline is being developed, and when you define new licenses, is what's the like legal theory you can say that this is dependent on? Is there such a theory that I can brush up on?
Sorry, we're talking about the hardware licenses.
Oh, yeah, yeah. In general, like what kind of legal theory perspective that um, that's this works depend on.
Yes, I mean, most sort of open hardware licenses are typically dependent on the underlying design documents. So fundamentally, you'll be looking at the copyright in those design documents, but then you'll be looking in sort of design rights, and also you'll be looking in patents as well, and there could be alternative rights like database rights, etc. So broadly speaking, the rights that you would be looking at in an open hardware license would be broader than the rights that you would be looking at an open source software license, which would be very much sort of focused just purely on the copyright, but then also with aspects of patent in there as well, and a little smattering of trademark, but not very much. So that's the background. Does that help?
Yeah, yeah, that helps. Also, what I also mean is like, for example, is this just mainly about copyright law, contract law, or because the open source is cross-border, so or also need to consider like international law or like whether like natural law, whether it's because each country has a different way law defines different. What's the theory behind all this concepts?
Yes, I mean this is probably sort of worth an offline conversation that I'm happy to talk about. But again, in a nutshell, open source software licensing, it's the sort of received wisdom is that it is purely based on intellectual property rights, such as copyright, and that licenses are non-contractual. But there's been a sort of significant change recently in terms of this form of thinking. So there's sort of case in the US at the moment, for example, called the Visio case, where this theory is being fairly sorely tested. But one of the aims of open source obviously has been to try to internationalize the licenses so that they have the same effect across jurisdictions. And the way to do that is to try to focus, particularly in terms of software, on copyright, which is broadly harmonized around the world, rather than contract law, which can vary significantly from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. How effective that has been in practice is a matter of debate. But that's the sort of the broad idea.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Um, right. Okay. So I will on the specific leaflet. I think that's a good point actually, as far as the graphics are concerned. So I'll make sure that there is available a version of the graphics that we're able to actually see effectively and comment on that. And again, if people feel that the commentary has not been sufficiently effective online, then feel free to say, can we discuss this in the next Zoom meeting, and we can do it then. So I will place a deadline of the 14th for discussion on that, unless people say they want to discuss it in the subsequent Zoom meeting. Are we happy with that? Okay, super, excellent. Right, we are making very good progress.
I see Victor has his hand up. I'm not sure if he has a comment or not.
Victor, sorry, is your hand still up, or you put it down again? Yeah, that was just from the last comment, I think. Yeah, great. Okay, thank you.
And can I don't know who has the control on the GitHub. If that version that Shane's created, pull request can be accepted, I think that probably would be good. So we're commenting against the accepted one. And I'll try and figure out how to use GitHub and see if I can actually do it. Propose changes that way rather than a Word document. We'll see.
Yeah, you and me both. I think yes, I also need to do some sort of GitHub training as well.
That may be worth a education session. We may want to do a kind of live recorded process session of how to interact with GitHub to do this work. I think that'd be helpful. So.
You know what, Jeff? That is a suggestion of genius. Yes, let's do that. That is a really good idea.
I was thinking it was only me that didn't know this stuff, but maybe it's loads of us. I don't know.
Yeah, let's. I'll arrange that. That really is an excellent idea, actually. So yeah, I'll arrange that. Right, super. Okay, I think the next topic was Martin's videos. So I don't know if anyone has had a chance to have a look at them. Martin's really done some superb work on these. They are all available on GitHub. What I was sort of proposing to do, if people haven't seen them, is maybe just play one of them. They're pretty short, just to sort of give people a flavour of what they look like. I mean, I personally have absolutely no problem with releasing them. I think they're ready for that.
God, you better let me drop off and come back in 5 more minutes. Then I don't want to see them.
Do you have a favourite that you'd like me to show?
No, and I suspect they get worse as the time goes on. I know the last one is the worst one, but I don't use that one internally, so
no.
I was less concerned about it.
I'll start with the sort of the first full one, which is rights and licensing. And again, sorry, just while I fiddle around with my computer and try to find the I did put the folder somewhere sensible that had them in. So now I've got to try and find it. Excuse me. Right, here we go. Right, how do I share this? Now I've got to make sure that Zoom is happy sharing a video. I think it
sometimes it
doesn't
doesn't share the
as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But let's see how this works. Right. Share sound. That sounds like optimize for video clip. That sounds good as well. Right. To restart Zoom. Maybe not. Maybe not. Can you still hear me is the important thing. Yep, good. Right. Can we hear that music? Yep.
First, we need to learn about intellectual property and software licenses. In practice, this means a focus on the concept of copyright. Copyright both restricts and grants rights to users of software. The creator or owner of the software possesses the copyright, and any users have to have a license in order to legally use it. By owner, this could be an individual or a company or some other legal entity. Please note that this chapter does not require a legal background. Whilst I discuss some concepts from law, I will do this in a way that does not require any previous legal knowledge.
Right, fantastic. I'm not going to play any more of that. That's no reflection on the quality of it as well. Just want to save Martin's embarrassment. I know what it's like, but anyway, no, I really think they are excellent. I mean, they're all in that sort of vein there as well. So let's stop the sharing on that one. So, any comments from anyone about suggesting to Shane that they should be made available to the general populace on YouTube?
Yeah, I guess I should add, in case it's been forgotten or whatever, this is the script is basically the text from the LFC 193 course. Okay, yeah, there's a few bits of minor tweaks here and there because I had to be able to try and read it as naturally as possible. But basically, it is the material that has come from this group in the first place.
Excellent. Good. Right. Okay. We are making some splendid progress, which is exactly what I wanted to hear. Right. Next topic. And
I would say, I guess just
yeah,
the thing.
sorry, Jeff. Yeah.
We should probably have a second set of eyes just to look through, just to make sure there's no like accidental confidential information shown in a background screen. I haven't seen the videos yet, but just before we publish them, we should probably do an editorial pass just to make sure we have, that audio
Yep.
quality is good,
I
and
mean,
there's no confidential stuff or anything we
yeah.
want to re-edit or whatever. So
I mean, I've been through them personally,
Right.
and I'm happy with them. But I'm very happy to again put a 2-week deadline on this to say if anyone wants to review them by then, has got any problems.
I mean, if you watch them, I don't need to put a gate on it then. So I just want to
okay. No, that's
if we hadn't done that, I just want to make sure that we have a gate.
Yeah, sure. No, that's a perfectly reasonable suggestion. So I have no problem with that. Okay, that's brilliant. In that case, I will suggest that Shane presses the green button on that one. So that's excellent. Right. Okay, we are romping through, which is always good. Right, so those of you that were around in the last meeting will recall that I did bring up the suggestion of introducing some short explainer slides that we can use when we are trying to explain the concept of OpenChain and essentially sell it to different stakeholders within a specific organization. And this is something that we're working on for clients anyway, so it seemed to make sense that these would be of sort of general application. And so I'm sort of happy to work on some of these myself. I wanted to give you an example of them. But the idea is that, so you have 3 or 4 slides for each explainer, and then these are this is the suite that I'm suggesting at the moment. So an explainer for the C-suite, and I've done one of those briefly, and I'll just show that to you in a second. We want one for the sales and marketing department. We want one from the HR department as well. People have asked me, why does HR, human resources, need to know about open source? And the answer is, I mean, I'm quite often interacting with people in human resources departments because they're the people who will typically be involved with. They'll clearly be producing employment documentation, employment contracts. They'll be producing things like employment policies. They'll probably get involved in producing IP policies, and it's specifically what sort of IP policies they need to produce that are going to make developers and maintainers feel comfortable working in their organization, that they're able to continue to work on projects that are not conflicting, not problematic from the company's perspective, from an IP policy perspective, and to be able to communicate that effectively to the developers and maintainers. So there are some specific aspects of working in the world of open source which do impinge on employment, and I think it's quite important to bring those out and to be able to explain to the HR department why implementing OpenChain is something that is going to make life easier for them when they're interacting with the employees and staff of an organization. Explainer for compliance and risk management and legal departments. I think that one's sort of fairly self-explanatory. Clearly an explainer for developers makes sense as well, so they can understand what OpenChain is all about and what the implementation process might look like and feel like for them, and why it's beneficial for them to be involved in that process, and why at the end of the process it's going to improve their working experience. And also we had a great suggestion from the last session for an explainer for training and skills management departments. It may be that they are not the same department as HR, maybe a separate department, but there's also a different set of sort of requirements in there as well. So the intention is to put together a sort of brief explainer. So I don't know if anyone wants to have any comments on the particular list.
It's
Yeah,
Jeff here. I think it's a great list. We might just, with the world that we're in, maybe want to explicitly call out security / IT / CISO as a dedicated and possibly procurement, because SBOMs are becoming such a big part of the sale. And we have sales here. Yeah, sales and marketing, but procurement.
Yeah.
So the SBOM requirements.
Yeah. No, both of those make a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. That's great. So to give you an idea of what this might look like, I sort of put a few slides together. So this is probably where I need some input from those of you with sort of better marketing and communication skills than I've got, because these really need to be impactful, and they need to focus on what the concerns of the C-suite are. So the first slide, the issue, I mean, this just sets the scene and basically says, what is the problem that we've got? What is the context that we find ourselves in? So, explains very basic terms because all of us have come across from people in the C-suite who don't necessarily have the same grasp of the pervasiveness of open source software as the rest of us do. So first of all, they have to know that open source software is everywhere, and that it is publicly available code that anyone can use and incorporate it into their products. But that doesn't mean that it's a free-for-all. It's still subject to licenses, and those licenses have a legal impact. And the benefits are that using it increases productivity because it reduces time to market and increases code quality. But it's universal in the industry, everywhere. All the software contains open source, right? We all know that. But there's quite a lot of people that don't as well. But license non-compliance is a risk. And to put that risk into context, each of our products can contain thousands of components, and any one of those components could present legal risk. So that's the issue. So what's the solution? The solution is OpenChain. And for this exercise, we're just talking about the license compliance side of things. So a little bit of an explainer about what OpenChain is. It's a framework that makes sure that people involved in the project are appropriately skilled, trained, empowered, and managed. It's important that we know what all of the components are that we've got in our code, and we understand what the license obligations are, and we've got a procedure for dealing with those license obligations. Again, you all know this, but what I'm trying to do is to make this as sort of snappy as possible without sort of going into the weeds. So it doesn't cover every single aspect of OpenChain, but it covers what I believe are the most important ones. And we have an effective mechanism for dealing with queries and issues. And also, it's not scary. So what I'm saying is it's based on quality and process management standards, based on existing ISO industry standards. And then, each company, if you're aiming at a particular C-suite in a particular organization, you may well, want to talk about standards that particular company has already adopted within their particular domain of business. Again, to make it seem non-scary, this is something that we are used to dealing with. There's nothing unusual about this. So what are the benefits? Well, there's a reduction in compliance risk. We've talked about that a little bit already, but scope here that, for a particular industry, for example, if it's the financial services industry, you might want to talk about DORA regulation, which is specific to that industry. So it increases trust in the supply chain for both suppliers and customers. And it decreases transaction costs. It increases friction, and it increases transaction speed, which is supposed to have an S on the end and not a D. And it increases productivity from developers and program participants because it gives them certainty in terms of the selection and use of the components that they have, but it also decreases interaction with the legal department. And all know how expensive and slow legal departments are. So any decreased interaction is bound to be a good thing. It can also allow access to insurance products and more competitive premiums because risk is being actively managed effectively. And it can lead to simplification of M&A transactions, and that would include fundraisings, IPOs, and exits, because the DD, the due diligence process, becomes more straightforward. And this all leads to increase in shareholder value, and that's really the only thing the C-suite's interested in. Any comments on this? I'm just proposing this as a sort of sample of the way that these things could look.
I think definitely looks good, and I think you're asking for help, so I think we can all join in and edit as needed.
Yeah,
I would
fantastic.
probably I like sprinkling the SBOM word,
Yep.
especially early on with C-suites, because I think that they're going to hear that and they're going to latch onto it. They're
Actually,
getting
that's a good
over the head
idea.
with
Yeah,
it.
sort of familiarizes them. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe
Okay.
security on the first page as well, just because that's such a hot button issue for, if we want to grab them in the first page. It's SBOM, it's new legislation around disclosures and management of open source. It's
Yep.
license compliance and security. And maybe even put in a, is our number 80%? Is it 90%? 80 to 90% of the software you're using is actually coming from the outside through open source.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and really
Okay.
educate them in that first page, and also show them the impact, the kind of the size of the problem that they have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. No, I think those are all really good suggestions. So I just realized I did actually have another slide as well, which does cover some of those points, but not all of them. It's backed by the Linux Foundation, big organization. It's supported by, and again, you'll want to vary by the people it's supported by, depending on what industry you're in. They think if our competitors are up to it, we should be doing this as well. It gives you access to a community of other supporters. Then the high rate of adoption. So, Jeff, this covers some of the things that you were talking about. But I think also the percentage of code aspect will be a good one to put in there as well. And also, it can be the start of a journey that gives you access to adjacent standards and regulatory requirements as well. So, sort of a little bit of an explainer there about that, other activities that OpenChain is involved with. So if everyone's happy with this, what I propose to do is I will turn it into Markdown, and then I will place it on GitHub, and then I will give everyone the link to it, to circulate the link, and then issues, pull requests, whatever, will be sort of very gratefully considered. So thank you very much indeed for those. If anyone wants to start populating similar slides for any other explainer topics as well, obviously very happy if you're prepared to do that, and we can run that through the same collaborative process. Super. So any final thoughts on those? Mary?
Sure. So I like the C-suite one, but I know for my C-suite,
Yeah,
and others can chime in and let me know what you think. This all sounds well and good, but they're not going to really do much about it until customers start asking
yes, yeah,
for this certification. Customers
yeah.
start
No,
to
I think
ask.
that's a good point. And different companies obviously adopt OpenChain for different reasons. Customer pressure is sort of very much one of them. But it may be regulatory as well. I mean, one of the things that I'm trying to do is when I'm talking to the finance industry, is try to explain that you've got a bigger risk management problem than you think, and you've got regulations like DORA coming out, and because you have to look at operational risk obviously includes the software that you're using to run your organization and so on. So I think we may end up actually having to have slightly different versions of this for different narratives, depending on who the driver is behind the change. But I think, Mary, I mean, you're definitely right that it is. I think more frequently than not, it is clearly, it's if the customers are demanding it, then it's something that needs to be addressed. Stephen, you put your hand up.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Just raised there just then. So maybe there should be a sort of a section on this is like, well, when should I act? Because this is sort of informative, but it's also a call to action for the C-suite. And so, well, typically we find that organizations need to act, 6 months before a major investment round, for due diligence, or a year before looking for a particular sale, or 6 months in advance of securing a major supply chain contract. Maybe it'd be worth sort of thinking of a few.
Yeah, I like that.
Trigger point scenarios where you sort of like, no, yes, this needs taken care of, but if you've got one of these coming up in the next 12 months, you need to be thinking about it now.
Yeah, no, I think that's an extremely good point. Yeah, definitely.
So these are going to be kind of template slides, and then we would be able to update or make changes to target our specific C-suites, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think we want to encourage people to change them for their own organizations, because clearly they're going to be more effective if they have been tailored. But if we can give them the sort of the key messages, and I think that the sort of timeline idea is a really good one. But also, Mary, as you say, examining the drivers as to why people will want to adopt OpenChain in the first place as well. I think that also needs to be considered. So I think a sort of little sort of implementation explainer, actually saying, what are these slides for? How do you use them? It's don't just pull them out and just run into the boardroom and show them to everyone. You need to do a little bit of prep, and this should get you 80% of the way there, but you'll have to do 20% of the work in terms of thinking, what are the specific issues that are going to affect your company? What are the specific issues, in terms of timing? What are the drivers, etc.? All of those good things.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, fantastic. Good. No, thank you. That's a really helpful discussion. So I think we've made some really good progress there. So I will, as I say, I will convert these into Markdown, and I will sort of place them on GitHub, and sort of also summarize the discussion that we've had as well. And then if people can leap in and with the suggestions and so on, that is it's going to be really good. Thank you for that. Right. Okay. We are sort of romping through stuff pretty rapidly. The other thing that was we were going to talk about were some new topics. I was going to postpone these until the next meeting, because I actually think we've had a lot of mental headspace that we've been dealing with things today, and I think we probably need to sort of prepare a bit on these. But one of the things that I mentioned in the last meeting was the capability maturity model that we've been working on. We've said that we're happy to share our thoughts and provide materials to the OpenChain project in general on that. I mean, without going into any sort of major detail, I don't know, Stephen, if you want to sort of just give us a sort of like a 1 minute overview right now, and then we can have a more comprehensive presentation at the next meeting.
Yeah, thank you. I think Shane described it really quite nicely on our previous meeting with the Finos community, which was actually very interesting. Shane stepped through the history of OpenChain, and I think the sort of the why, the purpose for the, as you say there, Andrew, purpose for the capability maturity model is to provide people with a framework and a toolkit to allow you to move beyond initial compliance understanding to be able to sort of understand where you should iterate your focus and development on how to improve and how to get better at OpenChain compliance. And so the maturity model follows a very well trodden path of understanding and breaking down the activities, and in this case the activities within ISO 50230 are sort of broken down into a convenient structure of 3 different layers: a sort of strategic layer, management enable layer, and then a delivery layer. And it provides a means for sort of effectively assessing your capability using a structured question base behind that, and the assessment looks at 4 different lenses in terms of what you're doing, in terms of people capabilities, in terms of process, in terms of information, and in terms of systems. And the idea behind those 4 different lenses is to sort of be able to very quickly drop out a tangible, okay, well, we need to improve the way in which we are recording accountabilities in our organization structure, or we need to really improve the deployment of our tool chain in the system side of things. And so the framework enables a sort of a quick and easy roadmap for improvement. And that really is a summary of what's in it. And it's been road tested a couple of times. And I think, it's something that so far has received some some very positive reception. But I think in this group it'd be really good to kick it around a bit and to see how it fits with other approaches, and whether it's something that is got that sort of balance right between being open enough a framework to be applicable in a lot of scenarios, but also to be useful in sufficient use cases for people. So I think that's a useful conversation that we get to have here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you very much for that. So as I say, my proposal is that we talk about this in a little greater depth in the next meeting. We can talk about these, what we would could potentially have as the deliverables for this, why it's appropriate for the education work group for me taking a look at that. I don't know if anyone else has any sort of particular comments around that.
A quick question on the maturity model. Is there a specific format? Is this going to be like in Markdown, where it's a little bit more collaborative in GitHub, or are we going to leverage a different system for that?
This is a secondary question, which is so thank you, Jacob. Which is, I think, certainly I'm detecting from certain individuals, including myself on this call, that we're not maybe as comfortable with GitHub as maybe we ought to be, and I mean, there is an argument for saying, and it has been done in the past, that we've used a different collaborative medium for dealing with this sort of thing, like Google Docs, for example, and then once we're happy with the shape of it, then we move it to GitHub. I mean, my personal holy grail would be some sort of document a collaboration system that actually integrates seamlessly with GitHub, so it's all basically GitHub in the background. But unless anyone is aware of such a thing, I haven't actually found that yet. There is a sort of what's the most polite way of putting this? There's a certain pride in being able to navigate your way around GitHub, and I have not got to the stage where I can in any way indulge in that. So I sort of personally, I'd be quite happy to kick this off in something like Google Docs, and then when we're happy with it, move it over to GitHub. But I realize that's probably not the ideal solution. We'll have a think about that. I mean, I think Stephen and I are going to be sort of working on some initial materials in the background anyway, and we will sort of figure out a mechanism that works best. And then by doing that, we'll sort of hopefully also be able to sort of propose the collaboration mechanism. I think for purely textual documents, I think we should be all able to work in GitHub sort of fairly effectively, because that's essentially what it is. But we've already identified there's a bit of a problem when it comes to graphics. And I think the CMM is certainly it's much easier to explain and understand the concepts if it's got a reasonable amount of graphical content in there as well. So I think that may be sort of one of the criteria we bear in mind when we think about what an appropriate platform is. But yes, thank you for raising that point and making it explicit, because I suspect quite a lot of us were thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I think that yeah, there's a lot of different collaboration tools. I'm just excited that the maturity model is on the docket to work on at all. So
Yeah, fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you for saying that. Right. Okay. Well, we've actually, yeah, we've made up sort of very good time. There's nothing else on my agenda other than the next meeting, which is going to be first Wednesday of the month, which by my calculation is the 5th of June. So if anyone has any sort of problems with that as a date, or whether this time is sort of problematic, whether we need to have some sort of time that moves around so that it's more accessible to people in sort of problematic time zones. But if you do have any issues about that, either sort of raise them now and we can think about them, or alternatively raise them on the mailing list. This is just a universal issue that all of the working groups have. And it's also quite convenient for us based in the UK to be essentially on the meridian, so we're halfway between east and west. But you know, that's just pure selfishness from my perspective. Splendid. Okay, so I will take it that we've covered everything that we need to cover in this meeting. Thank you again for your participation. I think we had some really, really good discussions there. We made some fantastic progress. We're going to be, you know, publishing a bunch of stuff either today or in 2 weeks' time. And you know, we've got some really interesting initiatives underway. So thank you very much, everyone. I will let you have the rest of your day back, however long that is, and I hope to catch up with you all soon. Thank you.
Thanks
Okay,
very much.
bye-bye now.
And
Great seeing
bye.
you all.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.